think a lot of people realize that networking is beneficial, but I don't think a lot of people realize just how much so, how long it takes, and definitely not how to do it properly. Um,
Mm.
it's a skill, just like anything else, but it's definitely a very unsexy skill. It is not attractive. It is not like a, make 10K overnight sort of thing. But it is make millions of dollars over the rest of your life sort of thing.
Welcome to Behind the Sale. I'm your host, Princess B. On this show, we talk about sales and leadership in the high ticket space. My goal is to help you level up your skills as a leader so you can close more deals and transform more lives. Today, we have Christian Jack on the show. What fascinates me so much about him is that he was able to take the 3 R's, results, reputation, and relationships, and run with it to create his brand and his business. And as sales professionals, we are a business, right? And this is a topic that I've been wanting to discuss for a while now, because people are always asking me questions about branding and networking. And I just send them over to Christian Jack because I feel like he's the best person to actually coach you on this because his results speak for themselves. So, Christian, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited. I feel like a
Yeah.
celebrity now coming on Princess's podcast.
Oh, stop it. Oh my God. Honestly, like Christian, like what fascinates me too is that with all the opportunities that are coming your way, you have an ability to manage like so many accounts and still deliver effectively, efficiently, I should say. And that's because it's not just you, right? So a burning question that I had for you is like, how do you know when it's time to hire an assistant?
It's a good question. I think it's a question not a lot of people get to the point where they need to ask, to be honest. People, I think people put a lot of emphasis and a lot of I don't know, they put it on a pedestal, like if somebody has an assistant, when in reality it's just that you have too many things to do and you realize what things you need to prioritize. So I guess the simple answer to the question is when you feel like you're not able to prioritize the things that need to be prioritized, that's when you need an assistant. Um, for me, it was right around like the 17, 18K a month mark where I realized I was just losing a lot of time on no shows and follow-ups and different things like that. So then that's when I hired my first assistant.
Okay, yeah, that's about right. Because for me, I started thinking about that when I realized I was actually losing deals or leaving money on the table because I was spending so much of my mental energy on tasks that someone else could do, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, and I was just getting overwhelmed. So, okay, that's
Yeah.
good. Um, with all the accounts and opportunities, right, that are knocking on your door for help because you're not only managing, but you're also consulting and you're also closing, right? Because you can for fun. Um, how do you decide which accounts to work with?
Great question. It may seem maybe a little bit anticlimactic, but it's just the ones that I like. It's the ones that I'm excited about and that I feel like I'm going to enjoy the most, both the actual product offering and how we're helping people on a day-to-day basis, but then also the people that I get to work with. Do I actually like them? Do I enjoy spending time with them and like masterminding with them and working on and solving problems together? I think that's a really big part of it because anytime you join an offer, you're going to be going through the trenches, right?
Mhm.
There's going to be tough days, and so are those tough days really going to be like shit just because you hate what you're doing and because you don't enjoy the people that you're working with and you feel like you're on an island? Or are you really enjoying what you're doing? Do you realize that you're changing lives on a day-to-day basis? Um, and do you really enjoy the people, you know?
Yeah. And when it comes to accounts that you manage, is there a certain criteria or a question that you ask, something that you look for to decide, okay, is this going to be a good team to work with or not?
Mhm. Um, no specific questions, I would say. Um, couple of key bullet points that I would definitely cover to know about like the internal team is number one, just like know how much leeway you have in what you do, how open they are to new ideas, um, to changing things that aren't working. You kind of got to toe the line a little bit of like letting them know that you're willing to do what their process is if it works. But then also, the things that maybe aren't working as well, if you have an idea, how much leeway are they going to give you to go and test that, right? If it's my way or the highway, I'm not joining no matter what. I don't care what they pay me, not a chance. Um, if it's like you have some leeway, we want to hear from you. And we'll try it out for a couple weeks. And if it doesn't work, we would like you to come back to this way. Totally cool with that. Right. At the end of the day, whatever moves the business forward the most, is probably going to work for me the most as well. So, that's a big one, is just how much leeway. And the number two, I would say also is just the energy you get from somebody on a meeting or an interview. Um, for me, that's a really big deal. Like, do you gain energy from being in the room with somebody? Do you feel more energized? Do you feel more excited about life? Do you feel more joyful? Do you feel more optimistic? Um, it, at the end of the day, you're spending a lot of your life with these people, sometimes an hour a day, sometimes more. Like, is that really the way that you want to live your life? And if it's not, then don't do it.
That's a really good question to ask yourself. Like, do I feel more energized when I'm in the room with them? I think looking back, um, I should have asked myself that question when it comes to
Yeah,
certain accounts. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Love that. What would it, let's say on the flip side, then what would it take for you to have to, or to leave an account? Like what would have to happen, whether it's an account you're managing or closing on?
good question. I've left a lot of accounts. I think a couple of different reasons. Number one, um, if it just doesn't make sense time to financials wise to be there anymore, that's probably the first thing. If you have a better opportunity somewhere else that fits into your goals, fits into the life that you want to live, etc., um, just to optimize whatever you're doing to get to where you want to be, right? At the end of the day, if you pass up on an opportunity that you really wanted that would pay you more or give you more leeway with your time or more traveling capabilities or whatever it may be that you feel like would be better for you and your future and your mental health or like whatever, if you pass that up, it's going to be stewing in your mind. It's going to be something that is just in the back of your mind the whole time, that you're working on this account, and you're probably going to end up feeling bad about it, resenting it, wishing that you had taken that. And then your performance on this account is probably going to follow. Like it's probably just going to go down from there. So that's one. Number two is if you feel like things aren't really progressing, I think if it feels stagnant, if the team isn't growing, if the company isn't, doing better and better, it's okay to have a down month or two. But if it happens, for me, usually it's about 3 months in a row. If things don't move, I'm probably going to leave, um, because the more again that you're living your life in a stagnant place, the more that you are going to absorb that energy, right? Um,
Yeah.
you are what you're surrounded by a lot of the time, right? And if you're surrounded by a bunch of people that are just staying in the same place, like that's probably going to be what you're going to end up doing, and they're probably going to
Yeah.
slow your growth. And then the last thing that I would say is probably um, just if you don't enjoy it anymore, like if it doesn't have that spark, if you're not excited about it, and of course do everything that you can to make sure that it's not just like boredom and doing the same thing, right? Part of that is progressing. um, if you're progressing, if you're succeeding, you likely won't be bored. So it kind of plays into the second one. But if you're not excited about it anymore, go somewhere where you are excited. And the company will probably in turn rather have someone who is excited to be there. And it's going to just be better for everybody.
That's so true. That's a really good point. I feel like the light bulb moment for me listening to you speak is energy is important. So I've been in cases where I've stayed on an offer longer than I should have just because I wanted to be loyal or I didn't want to be seen as like an offer hopper or whatever, just this
Sure.
BS story in my head. And then it ended up having not a good impact on me or the company because I'm not showing up in the right energy. And yeah,
Right.
people can feed off of that. So it is so important. It's like, what's more important to you, being loyal to a company that couldn't care less if you got hit by a bus tomorrow, or being someplace that actually feeds you and fills your cup, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of along those lines, so many sales reps in the high ticket space, they're so hungry for another offer, right? That they don't treat themselves like they're an asset. So they kind of have that 9 to 5 mentality of like, I have to go get a job, they have to like me, blah, blah, blah. So they're like, oh, when they're talking to a sales manager or a hiring manager, they're like, I'll do whatever it takes. I'll work extra hours, I'll work weekends, I'll work late. What would you say to the sales reps who aren't quite at your level yet, but who want to bring some neutrality to the conversation with a sales manager?
Hmm. I think just flip the script and imagine if the sales manager was acting that way to you. If you're interviewing and the sales manager is like, we'll do whatever it takes to have you on board, like, well, you don't have to come to any meetings, we're not gonna like enforce us, like, you just do whatever you want, we just want you to have, we just like want you to be here. um I would imagine for 99% of people that would probably raise some alarm bells, set off some red flags. um because at the end of the day, all that is you're just showing neediness. And it's not necessarily a bad thing to need an opportunity or really want to be on a team. um, but also just imagine it the other way around, and how would you feel if the person that you're interviewing with was like that to you? So in my mind, that's probably the best way, if you haven't thought about it that way, just to think about it for a second. And then just tactical steps when you're actually on the interview. um, just remember that you are just as much interviewing them as they are you. And you have to set standards for yourself, because if you don't, nobody will. And I get the mentality of, I will do anything, I will make anything work, I will, do whatever it takes to be successful. But also, I think it's not that black and white. Your success is not 100% dependent upon what you do. Otherwise, you would be running your own business. If you're a sales professional, there's a big, big importance on marketing and what the funnel is like up to the sales call, and all these different things that are in place to help you succeed. Um, and there's a lot of different businesses out there to work with. There's a lot of different opportunities. So if you find one that isn't necessarily what you're looking for, and you're just being needy and doing whatever it takes to make it work, you're operating in a scarcity mindset. And if you're a closer, if you're a salesperson, if you're watching this, this is not the way to operate. It's not the way to live life. Because if you live that way, your prospects are going to feel that way. And it's just going to emanate. That's the energy that you're going to give off in every interaction you have. So you
Yeah.
have to live the standards that you want other people to have when they're on your sales call. Somebody came up and they were, in that sort of scarcity mindset, like, I'll do anything. Um, sure, you might get the sale, but it probably won't turn out the way that you want it to, right? If I see like an application on my calendar and someone's like, I will do anything, I'm like, DQ, cancel the appointment. Like, they're going to
Really?
show up because they're probably going to be broke,
Yeah.
99% of the time. If somebody is in that mindset, it means that they are in a scarce place. And sure, they might be willing to do anything to get out of it. But more often than not, willing to do anything does not actually mean willing to do anything.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'd set higher standards for yourself, and you would actually go for the things that you could get.
Oof. Poetic snaps. Yeah. That was the bar. We need to like take a moment and digest that. It's so true. It's the same thing. So it's like if people are feeling stuck or in an energy that's negative or just is not serving you, just flip it. What if someone came to you with that? Whether it's a prospect or a sales manager. It's so true. The people who are like, I will do anything to make a dollar, they don't have it to invest in any type of program to actually help them grow their business, for example. So, yeah. Geez. Okay. So when it comes to networking and getting on the best, offers. I mean, I'm curious, what is your overall mission with side door networking?
Um, it's to provide the people who realize what they need, um, with the tools to go and actually do what it is that they want to do. I think a lot of people realize that networking is beneficial, but I don't think a lot of people realize just how much so, how long it takes, and definitely not how to do it properly. Um,
Mm.
it's a skill, just like anything else, but it's definitely a very unsexy skill. It is not attractive. It is not like a, make 10K overnight sort of thing. But it is make millions of dollars over the rest of your life sort of thing.
It's a hot topic right now, networking. A lot of people are really
Yeah.
hungry to just get in the right doors, talk to the right people. Like I had a guy tell me his mentor told him he should spend 80% of his time networking and 20% working on his sales skills. And he's a newer rep, and that blew my mind. I was like, dude,
Mm,
what? So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. Like, what should the ratio look like?
mm. I don't think that there's any like golden ratio. There's no quote unquote perfect answer. Um, but it will probably change based on what you prioritize and what you feel like is most important, and also what you feel like you're good at versus not. Um, case in point, if somebody feels like they are incredible at sales, like best in the business, massive ego, um, they could both say, I've got the best sales skills. I just need a great opportunity and I will crush it and I'll be set for life. Right. And they could also say, I'm the best closer. Um, I don't need to network at all because I can just make anything work. Right. So different people will make different decisions based on what they view as important, same as anything in life, I think. For me, I networked a lot more once I got my skills up. And so things happened more quickly. If you network earlier, you'll probably get into some better opportunities earlier. And then you have to wait for your skill to catch up to you. So it's really just about which order you want to do it in. Personally, I'd focused on my skills first, and then I networked, and then now I've, you know, 20x my income in the past year. But it was all the skill building before that that really made it happen, right? So then when the door was presented, I got it every time.
Exactly. Can we please shout this from the rooftops for the people? People in the back, please. Please.
If you have great skills, like it, I've never been turned down an interview. Like if I got the interview, I got the offer every time.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm grateful to be in that position as well, where it's like everyone I talk to, it's like they see what I bring to the table because I focused on my skills. It's still focusing on my skills constantly. There's always so much room to grow, right? And people see that. And so your results, one of the three R's, speaks louder than anything else. Because if
Yep.
you talk to hundreds of people and a lot of people know who you are, but you don't have any results though. No one's
They know
talking
you
good
suck.
things. Yeah, they know you
That's
suck.
bad.
That's going to do a lot more damage for your reputation. The other are, you know. So
Yep.
yeah. So okay. So you don't have to get into everything that you teach inside door networking, but what would you say is your number one networking tip?
Ooh, number one, it's probably content. Um, all that networking is sales, right? It debatably most things in life are sales. It's learning what somebody else values and providing them with something that they value, whether it be to solve a problem, to give them back more of a resource that they like, time, energy, money, whatever it may be, helping them achieve a certain goal, etc. Even just giving them more energy or more enjoyment in their life, a laugh if they enjoy laughing. Um, and so all networking is taking that to essentially a cold outreach type of strategy, right? Networking is connecting with people who don't know you. So you are doing cold outreach. That is what it is. So all that you have to learn is cold outreach. All that you have to learn is how to open up a conversation in a way where someone is willing to listen further and wants to listen further, or is intrigued or anything like that. So my biggest tip is to look at somebody's content, because usually if you're trying to connect with someone, they're probably posting content somewhere, whether it be a random story about them going out to dinner the night before, whether it be a long form written post about this article that they read, whether it be a video that they make about their sales process, or the gear that they use, in my case, for example. Whatever it may be, whatever someone is posting is something that they value. Otherwise, they wouldn't be posting it, right? They wouldn't be sharing something with the world if they didn't enjoy it, like it, feel like it was helpful, or even not helpful, et cetera, et cetera. So you can see both what somebody values and what they really don't value, what they don't appreciate, what they don't respect. So then you just use those things to provide more of that to them. If somebody values, say for example, I saw a post yesterday about a guy that just finished reading David Goggins' second book, never finished, right? I finished reading that this year myself. By him posting that, that he values learning, probably likes what David Goggins' message is about, like stay hard, taking souls, all that kind of good stuff. And he probably also values actually sharing knowledge and gaining it, rather than just valuing. Someone can value knowledge but not necessarily value the exchange of it. And so knowing those things, what you can do is you can craft your first message to that person. You can do some things to warm them up first. Typically I'll recommend like commenting on their stuff, sending them a couple messages about things. But if they value those things, just deepen that relationship through those things. So send them a David Goggins quote that he may not have heard of. Look up, a one-liner from one of his books that you really like, that you feel like he would like too. Sharing knowledge, maybe he would enjoy like studies about things that are about staying hard, and like what was it? Andrew Huberman did a podcast with David Goggins, like bring up the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. Be like, I don't know if you saw this video, but it was with David Goggins and he learned something here. I feel like you'd like it, right? So you're providing more of what they value to them, and then that warms up the relationship to the point where you can like actually DM them and probably have a chance of connecting, right?
Yeah, that's solid. That's so good. I actually had a guy who I guess wanted to network with me do that today, like literally
Mhm.
like 30 minutes ago. And I'm like, I wonder if he coached with you, because that's exactly what he did. He actually offered value. He struck up a conversation about the podcast. He asked me what my overall mission was and my goal. And then he sent me some content that would actually help me make my content better.
Exactly.
So it's like, I'm like, oh my God, I really appreciate that. Also, thanks for telling me my content is it sucks, but like no, like I really appreciated that, because it's like, yeah, he actually offered value. And so now it's like he's on my mind, and if he ever comes to me like a month or 2 months down the line and he's looking for an offer, it's like, oh, okay, this guy actually made an effort, you know?
Yeah.
So listen, people, if you want to stop sending meaningless messages to people, if you want to stop sounding like everyone else, if you want to get your DMs responded to, if you want to actually leave a lasting impression on the people you want to connect with, check out side door networking. Because yeah, I've seen like so many, I know a few people who've actually gone through it, and they're actually able to like land good positions because they know how to talk to people.
Yep.
So yeah. I think one of the biggest I think barriers for people, or roadblocks when it comes to networking, is just, or even branding, is just like building uh is it's being seen. I think that's the simple way to put it, is just like being seen by people, like, whether it's people you went to high school with, or just people who are not in the high ticket space, or even the ones who are. I think in general, people are afraid of getting judged, you know, and that holds them back. So, how did you overcome your fear of being seen or judged?
I think it's a good question. Because it's definitely something that I did have to overcome. I'm naturally definitely more of a people pleaser. I'm definitely naturally more of somebody that cares about what other people think of me. And I also want other people to see me in a good light. And so I think it's something where you just have to really take a hard look at the reality of things and take stock of what you actually feel and um, what you can realize about yourself. Because if you're not willing to like open that cabinet, if you're not willing to really take a look at those feelings that you have and evaluate them and be okay with them and use them, they're just going to stay there. Like there's nothing that you can do about it. You're forever going to be afraid of being seen. And if you're trying to get a better opportunity, if you're trying for more people to know your name, if you're trying to succeed in life, it's never done alone. It's always, always, always done with the help of other people. And if you don't allow other people to see you for what you really are and for who you are, and if you're afraid to show them that side of you, then you're only ever going to be where you are. You're never going to get taken out of the cabinet, if you will. Um, it's something that everybody wants a quick fix to. Everybody wants
Mhm.
like this great one-liner.
Yeah.
But again, just to take it back to Goggins, like you have to be willing to just take stock of what's there and face it. You have to be willing to go back into the dark water. You have to be willing to go back into the basement and face those feelings and those fears every single day. Um, no one is born with a strong mind. It's something that's built, and every single person has to do it, whether it's through, childhood trauma, whether it's through, growing up and having heartbreak, whether it be failing a bunch of times. It's good. It's got to be built one way or another. And if you have an easy life, it's never going to be built. So just be thankful for the fact that you do come against roadblocks and overcome them. And then that's how you build that confidence and that trust with yourself to where you're okay with being seen, because who you are on the outside is who you are on the inside.
Oof. Poetic snaps. Because it's so true. Like the reason why I think a lot of people are afraid of being seen is because um we don't want people to see the mess. Where maybe we're living out of integrity in some way, shape, or form. And so it's like, well, I don't want people to see that, you know? So it's like if you have nothing to hide, if you are who you say you are and all the things, everything's in alignment, then it's like it is what it is.
Yep. I think it's is it Hormozy that says build true confidence doesn't come from shouting affirmations in the mirror. It comes from building an unavoidable stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are and you'll do what you say you do. And
Exactly.
if you do those things, then it doesn't matter when people see you at your best, at your worst, because you still do what you say you'll do and you are still who you say that you are.
I love that. I love that. I feel like I low-key needed to hear that. Thank
Mm,
you.
yeah,
Yeah. So let's slide into the rapid fire question segment, okay? So I'm gonna ask you some questions and you answer with the first thing that comes to mind. Cool?
got it. No thoughts, just vibes.
Yes. All right. Christian, what are your non-negotiables? This could be regarding managing teams, that could be your daily processes, just whatever.
Non-negotiables. Okay. Um, Big overarching one is having mercy and grace for yourself in the long term, but being violent in the daily execution of what needs to happen to get there.
Ooh la la. The fact that you just came up with that on the spot, blowing my mind because that was beautiful. Okay, explain, please.
Yeah, yeah. So, for example, when I went to college, I went to college for music. I was a vocal performance major. It's like opera singing. Um, it's what I thought I was going to do. Um, and then circumstances changed. And so then I became a teacher, still teaching voice and like choir and stuff. But my end goal had changed. And then even from there, when I got into sales, my end goal changed. But like, that's okay. The end goal of where I end up in life 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 1 year from now, like, I really don't care as long as I keep moving forward. Right. And so then it's the daily execution of, I can set that long-term goal of, getting to a certain financial goal, or getting to a certain level of position, or, moving somewhere, like having this thing or whatever. And I reverse engineer the daily executions that need to happen there. And that's what I focus on. I don't have 5 year goals. I don't have 10 year goals. I really don't know what's going to happen next month, let alone next year. And so I'm okay with that. I have mercy and I have grace for myself as to what that looks like. But then on the day-to-day basis, I violently execute, and I am extremely dedicated to actually doing the things that it takes to move forward every day. That's what matters. It's just not staying in the same place.
That is hot fire. Oh my gosh, I'm having this is like a deja vu moment to a moment I had when I was interviewing Bill
Mhm.
Walsh, because he said something and I was like, oh my God, that's so validating to hear. So I just had that moment where when you said you don't even know what you're going to do in a month or 2 months from now, and that's okay. Just violently execute today.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I feel like sometimes this pressure on myself that I have to know what my long-term vision is. I think because people have been asking me lately, what's the long-term
Yeah.
vision for you? I'm like,
People
I
ask me all the time.
don't know. I
I'm
don't know.
like,
I'm
I
just
don't
trying
give
to
a
crush
shit.
it today. I'm just trying to close deals today. Let me live, you know?
Yep.
So if it feels like you just gave me permission to not know what I'm gonna do next month or 2 months down the line, and that's okay. As
It's
long as
okay
I'm,
to not
yeah.
know. I think for me, I definitely take stock every once in a while to reevaluate and just like see the direction I'm pointing in. I don't care about like the end point or the end goal. Just, am I pointed in the right direction? Like, is this the life that I want to live? Am I pointing in the direction of the place where I want to be? Like, if I want to be on the West Coast and I'm pointing north, like, need to shift, right? Need to go that way. But then as soon as I'm pointed in that direction, if I just focus on taking daily steps, I'm going to get there eventually, right? Along the
Yeah,
way, I'll find better vehicles, I'll find faster ways to get there, I'll find easier ways to get there. But as long as I'm pointed in the right direction, it will come.
that is hot fire, and that's so true. Okay, what is your biggest fear, Christian?
Ooh, it's a good one. Um, I think just getting to the end of my life and regretting not going for it.
Wow.
My biggest fear used to be probably being found out by other people, or being seen as um, somebody who is not great at what they do, or isn't smart, or any of those things. Um, just naturally, those are probably my inner fears. Um, but again, I've gone to the basement enough. I've gone back to the cold water enough. I've opened the cabinets enough to where I couldn't give two cents about what anybody else thinks at this point. To some extent, obviously everybody does. But my biggest fear is definitely getting to the end of my life and saying I didn't do the things that I wanted to do, or I didn't go for the chances, take the bets on myself that I wanted to make, you know? That's the big one. And it comes right in line with what they say, like what it was, at 98% of people who are on their deathbed don't regret the things that they did, but they regret not taking the chances that they could have taken, that they wanted to take. So
Yeah.
I think that's a big one for me.
Mm, yeah. I think that's something we all hear that, like the 98% thing. We all hear that, and it's like we understand logically, like, yes, let's make sure we take all the chances, do all the things. But
Sure.
when it comes down to actually do it, most of us don't. And that's why the percentage is so damn high, 98%. So
Shocker.
that's, yeah, it's a great reminder. Like, think about your deathbed. I think we should all think about it every day. If it's not going to
Have that
put you in a deep
4,000 weeks
depression.
poster in my
Yes.
background for a reason. Um,
Yes.
I think part of it is also just realizing what you do want versus what you don't want. what you don't want is definitely a big driving factor. But once you can shift that into like, what, okay, I know I don't want that, but like, what is the opposite of that? And if you can tangibly say, what is the opposite of getting to the end of my life and having regrets? It's probably like taking the chance on those investments. It's probably working a little bit harder on a day-to-day basis, probably pushing that extra inch, right? And at the end of the day, my metric for whether I lived my life that day in a way that I will be proud of at the end of my life is whether I'm happy. Like that's it. That's all that I really live my live my life for. I'm a Christian, so like I have deeper motivations behind that, like on the religious side of things. That's a big part of what I do. But then also like all of that stuff plays into like, am I just living a life where I'm happy? Like I've been poor. I've been what some people would call rich, certainly not as much as other people. Um, but like I've been on both sides of the spectrum and it doesn't matter, you know.
Mm, yeah.
But I think for a lot of people are just pushing to get to the side of the spectrum that they want to be on so much that they miss the journey in the middle, right? Alex Hormozy talks about his Solomon sort of situation where he imagines himself as 80-year-old Alex and looking back and um, loving the things that he goes through. It's not, when I went to college, for example, my favorite memory was not walking across the stage. I would venture to say most people's memory is not the peak of the mountain.
Yeah.
It's not, you know, when I was marrying my wife, it wasn't like the moment that we kissed and that we put the ring on each other. Like that was cool. But the moments that you remember the most and the most fondly are usually the hard times, right? Like when I'm 80 years old, what would I give to come back and like be scrappy with my wife and like go on our first dates where we weren't sure about each other, where we like where the energy we were trying to figure each other out and like getting to know each other. Or, when you're 80 years old and you have all the money in the world, how much would you give to go back and just be like back in the grind and just enjoy the process and enjoy the journey? And so if that's what 80-year-old version of me values, why in the world would I live my life today not valuing that and not being grateful for that and loving it and relishing it? Because if again I get to my deathbed and that's how I feel, it's probably how I should feel today.
Oh wow, like that was such a beautiful imagery too, describing, the journey, right? In the beginning, when you guys were first dating.
Yeah.
And this is something it's like it's beautiful to hear and it's like it clicks, right? The key to walk with the same energy every day is to just have a way to remind yourself of this every day. So for you, it's the what you have in your background, right? If we, I th What would you recommend is something that people can use to remind themselves every day to like recenter themselves, bring them to this energy? Because I have some days where I have this energy, and some days when I just forget.
Hmm. I do a couple of things, to be honest, and it depends on how I'm feeling in the morning. That will determine whether I do, all of them or not, whether it's needed. When I'm feeling more low energy, less motivated, I'm not reminded of, why I'm waking up and going and doing stuff. I will make sure that I do everything to a T and as hard as I can. So like working out, for example, cold plunge instead of a hot shower, breathing exercises, like all those different things, making sure for a fact that I definitely don't skip those on those days. On the hardest days, that's when you really need to push yourself to do what you need to do. Like cold showers, for example, just really emotionally ground me. I'm not sure why, not sure as to the science behind it, but that will do it. But then also part of my daily routine is going out and taking a walk every single morning. And when I take my walk, I'm praying, right? If you're not a Christian, just looking at nature and seeing everything that's there. And what I do personally is I thank God for all of the things that He's given me stewardship over, specifically, is what I say. For the things that He's loaned me in my short time here in order to live my life and multiply and yada, yada, yada. So, like, I thank Him for the legs that I'm walking on. I thank Him for the beautiful blue sky as I'm walking. I thank Him for the trees that provide oxygen. I thank Him for my wife. I thank Him for my ability to think, and that I don't have some sort of mental disability or physical disability, or like all these different things that we just take for granted, I think, on a day-to-day basis. I purposefully remember them, and I've built it into my routine to remember them. So then by the time I get to my first like meeting for the day, I'm in such an incredible mental space, and so grounded that I make it unreasonable for me to fail at anything that I do.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I'm starting to realize like having a routine is so important in the beginning of the day. I
Mhm.
was always one of those people who I would just jump straight into work because I felt like I have to be productive really quickly. And
Yep.
the only like my definition of productive is just like work, but work that serves other people, and it's not work
Yep.
that's really filling my cup first.
Yep.
And so that's definitely something I need to start really prioritizing is just having a few things. I'll start with like one or two that I do before I jump into actually like taking calls and like engaging with other people.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Last one. Describe your selling style in 2 to 3 words.
Man, words. I was expecting you to say sentences. Words, let's say, maybe trying to think of how to condense everything into words.
Yeah,
I'll say like the longer version, and then I'll see if I can condense it afterwards.
sure.
Um, so number one is seeing the best in someone, seeing the version of them that they want to be, and holding them to that standard. Number two would be treating others the way that I would want to be treated. And then number three is again upholding the standards that I hold for myself in specifically the mercy and grace for the long term, but the unrelenting, um, violent daily action in the short term. Um, so I don't know what words I would use to condense those definitions into, but those are
Mm,
those are really the three main things I would say.
okay, yeah, like high standard, golden rule,
Mhm.
and the last one, I feel like my
Like
brain is usually good
congruency.
at congruency. Beautiful. Amen. There we go. Yeah. I like to turn things into bullet points just so like I don't know. I think in bullet points. I think.
Mm,
So that's
yeah.
solid. Yeah. So as the guest of honor, Christian, every week I challenge the listeners to do something to move the needle toward becoming the person that they want to be, right? So what's the challenge that you can propose for the listeners?
I think just to keep it on the same vein of what we were talking about, if you're afraid to be seen or afraid to be heard or found out or anything like that, um, don't be afraid of your weaknesses or your doubts. Don't be embarrassed or pretend that those things don't exist. Um, those things are there for a reason, and you can use them to help you, or you can use them to give you excuses. And which one is completely up to you.
Yeah, that's solid. That's beautiful. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Poetic snaps one more time. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. I know the listeners got an egregious amount of value. I know I did. I feel like I should just bring people on to just give me free coaching because like I get so many nuggets that I didn't even expect. And so thank you so much for taking the time to come on here. Um, Listeners, If you haven't yet, rate the episode, give it a big fat thumbs up or thumbs down if you hated it, but I don't think that's going to happen. I'd love to get your feedback, and of course, subscribe to the podcast on whichever platform you're listening on, so that way you can catch the next episodes. And as always, don't forget to hold yourself to a higher degree, so that way you can be the most effective leader you can be. Till next time. Bye, guys.